Continuing that conversation, it's time to hit social media for hashtags. For that, we'd like to welcome in Landon Swan, the co-founder of LikeFolio.com, and welcome back Jenny Horn. And talking about these second and third order moves, somewhere down the line, the airlines are affected by the crude oil prices as they have to buy this jet fuel.
Right. Tom mentioned some names we saw strengthen. The airlines are not one that's seeing strength today. All down, over 2% respectively with, United, Delta, American. It's not a great day to be an airliner or a cruise liner, actually, for that matter. But these are names that there's no shortage of tweets. People love to tweet their experiences. I even tweeted my experience from this past weekend flying Delta. People love to tweet about different airlines. So, Landon, what are you seeing in your purchase intent data?
They do. They love to talk about the good experiences and the bad, usually the bad. But with some of them, it's more good than bad, which is rare. But when we look at the different airlines, the big four in particular, you see a trend when it comes to consumer happiness, and that's what we're kind of focusing on today instead of purchase intent. And we look at that, it's basically when people are talking about being happy flying or being unhappy flying. And you can see that there's a big gap between the top two and the bottom two among these four. Southwest and Delta are doing much better with happiness. Southwest is the leader right now at about 55%. Delta's right around 52%. And then you've got United and American at the bottom. American's actually 37%, very low. So out of every 8 people that talk about being happy or unhappy, 5 of those are talking about being unhappy. So American with their ticker AAL, a lot of people say always arriving late is what that stands for. Very frustrated with American, a lot of people are. So, the trend that we're seeing right now is that people are happy with Southwest and Delta, and generally speaking, that's a very long-term indicator for airlines. Of course, price is going to be a big factor, but I think that with oil, it's going to affect them all generally about the same. I know that if you're an airline and you have more business flyers, then they will be less sensitive to price increases. I don't think there's a huge discrepancy among these when it comes to business versus not. I think some of the big losers on that may be a company like Spirit Airlines, who, by the way, is the lowest as far as happiness at 28%. They don't get a lot of business travelers, so that could be even worse for them with oil prices spiking recently.
Yeah, and it's amazing, Landon, that you find any positive sentiment data on airlines, because it seems like anytime somebody mentions it on Twitter, it's usually negative, like, hey, my flight's canceled, my flight's changed. It's unbelievable that you found anything positive there.
There's poor customer service. Yeah, but okay, I had a very pleasant I would tweet about my pleasant experience with Delta this weekend.
Of course you would, Jenny.
I would. I totally would. So our first tweet is from Alex, who says, latest Brent crude oil price soared almost 20% last night following the drone strikes on Saudi oil installations. A temporary reaction, but significant for airlines if the outage were to last several weeks. So is this only going to be significant if it does last several weeks? Because we mentioned earlier, there's a lot of ifs in this kind of news-driven day.
I would look at it this way, that their margins are so tight, any increase in the price of oil. And remember, oil spiking higher doesn't mean the cost of jet fuel is going to come if they find some conclusion to this and Saudi Arabia gets their production back online quickly. It's always like the elevator up and the escalator down as far as jet fuel prices, and to that point, for autos too. So you have to take that into consideration. It'll probably always last a little bit longer in industries like this.
Yeah, and Landon, this oil news is kind of our catalyst for the airline conversation. But coming back to your data, the one thing that really sticks out to me is, for the most part, these lines seem to be fairly steady. They may oscillate around maybe a range of 5-10%. It is incredible to see Southwest and Delta both over 50% happiness. But American's clearly the outlier here, coming up from basically in the 60s down to, I think you said 37% now. What really fundamentally changed to see that kind of a significant move over the last 5 years?
Yeah, so I think with American, their problem was a lot with the 737 MAXs, which is interesting because Southwest has more than them, and Southwest is handling that problem very well. But American has had a lot of trouble. In fact, over the last just few months since that 737 MAX problem came out, about 20% of people who are talking about booking with American Airlines on Twitter are talking about rebooking as a consequence of a delay or cancellation. So those are not happy purchase intent mentions. Those are people who are having to rebook because American screwed things up for them. And so it's interesting, between those four, Southwest has the most 737 MAXs, American second, United has, I think, 14, and then Delta doesn't have any. So Southwest is actually really showing their strength strength here by being able to handle a crisis like this and remain at the top when it comes to happiness. American, on the other end, is doing the exact opposite and really making customers upset with causing a ton of delays and cancellations.
And there is a degree of loyalty. You have kind of an airline that you're loyal to, and then once you get kind of hurt by them, like I was burned by American, now I'm like, I think I'm Team Delta now, and I think we always joke in the office who flies Southwest versus United or American.
Wait, you got burned by American?
American,
Maybe they just got rid of you. They just, maybe that was it.
I do not think so. Our next tweet is from Glenn Herbert, who says, did anyone buy the dip on Delta Airlines this morning on the spike in oil price? Nice drop down to $57.25, then up to $58.50. Looks like it will come back some more, back under 58, hopefully. So do you think this could be a good price point to kind of get into a trade like Delta, Tom?
Yeah, I mean, it definitely opens up some opportunities when you've got it down 2.5%. You know, like I said, this is going to affect their bottom line because of the price increase. But you got to remember, Delta, I think it was like 5, 6, 8 years ago, they bought a refinery. I mean, think about that. So maybe they've got a little bit of insulation. And if you look at Landon's, consumer sentiment data, is pretty positive on Delta, even though it's come back in a little bit.
Yeah, and building on that, Landon, I think that's the really interesting point here too, because I think Southwest is kind of a different, experience than these other three airlines, where Delta, United, and American are kind of similar business models. You buy your seat, you get the seat you buy. Of course, the open seating on Southwest. If you take them out, what are they doing that's so different than United and American, or is it all 737 MAX and because they have no exposure at all?
No, honestly, I think it's just a different experience. A lot of it has to do with the frequent flyer programs. Delta is very good. It's very strong. Your points don't expire ever. And with United or American, you have to worry about, you have to make sure you book within a year or they go away, that kind of thing. Southwest is the same. They never expire. But you're right. Southwest is very different with your pick your own seating. But I think just, from personal experience, I can say that flying on Delta is just way better. I mean, they're never late. It seems like they never have problems. Whereas if you get off the ground out of the gate on time with American, you're thanking the stars because you got lucky that time, right? It's just, for the norm for Delta is a good experience, and the norm for United American is not a great experience.
I totally agree. Tom, you fly Spirit, don't you?
I've never flown Spirit, but I am loyal, just like we all like our loyalty programs. I've been loyal to American for the past 20, 25 years. So that's basically based on the fact that they've got a big hub here in Chicago.
That's another big piece too. It really just depends. It's very regional depending on where their hubs are. But Landon, we got to leave it there. Really great stuff. Interesting information, seeing kind of the divergence between these major airlines. But we'll look forward to talking to you again soon.
Sounds good. Happy Monday.
Happy Monday to you as well. Thanks, Jenny.